Hi, my name is Koku with blackfilm.com, and I'm speaking to Himesh Patel, star of the HBO Max miniseries Station 11. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you for a number of reasons, but so I'm looking into your story, and you've been acting since you were young, but I think it's also worth noting and highlighting you're also a multi-instrumentalist.
I pretended to be anyway. I managed to convince everyone I was.
Oh no!
I suppose I was for a minute.
Mhm.
I was for a minute there, but I've lost all that ability. I haven't played any instruments in a while now, so
Weren't you playing the guitar? Again. What was that? Was that acting?
In a way, yeah. I could play it a little bit before yesterday, but I had to really dig in and get a lot better for the movie, and I got there because I was doing it every day for about 6 months to then probably about a year, because I had to keep it up for the press tour as well. I was asked to perform some stuff during that, so I kept it up for a while, but ultimately I just haven't kept up with it, and I actually tried. I tried the other day, and I couldn't remember the chords to yesterday, and I was like, well, this isn't good. This isn't good.
Like, look where I was, look where I am now. No, that's funny because I play guitar much in the same way.
Oh,
like,
right.
I can do like the chords and everything now because I didn't keep up with it on the same level. So I can, it's like to the layman, to somebody that doesn't really play, they probably be like, oh my goodness, she can play guitar, but really, no, not really.
Yeah.
So I can relate to that. But what you can't run away from is I do think you have a beautiful voice, and I think that's something that you just you have to accept that.
I accept that, and thank you very much.
do you enjoy singing as much as acting?
I enjoy singing as much as acting, probably close to, but not. It doesn't come as naturally to me, I don't think, in terms of like the compulsion to do it, to perform in that way. But it's doing that film certainly gave me a bit more confidence with it. So yeah,
you did your thing. And another thing about you I thought that was really cool is that both of your parents are born in Africa, right? Zambia and Kenya. So here's where I'm just inserting myself in the mix. My parents are Tanzanian, Rwandan, or Rwandese. Okay. So we're somewhat neighbors. We could all high five, from a distance.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I thought that was a very interesting tie-in. That's really cool.
Yeah. So they spent a little bit of time there. But there's a huge Kenya, especially.
I know.
And Uganda, but Kenya especially. There's
even Tanzania.
Huge, there's a huge community there. So yeah.
Have you spent any time there yourself?
I haven't. No, I've never visited. I'd like to, especially Kenya, Nairobi. I'd love to go there.
Nairobi's pretty cool. It would remind you a lot of probably even New York. It is really no, it's a metropolitan city, and it feels very, very comfortable and familiar in that way. So it's a nice transition for people that have never necessarily been to Africa or that side of Africa. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, great.
So let's get into Station 11. I know that you guys began filming perhaps a little bit before the pandemic started, but you were also part of this, during the height of the pandemic. But there are perhaps eerie similarities as far as what felt like could have been possible a couple of years ago. When you were reading the script or perhaps even the book, were there ever moments where you were just kind of like, whoa, what in the heck could be going on?
Yeah, in terms of the sort of the link between reality and fiction.
Exactly.
Yeah, at the time that I read the book, I read the book when I got the audition. So we're talking about October, September 2019. This is, and so at the time it felt like pure fiction, of course. Although what I admired about the book was about how sort of terrifyingly plausible it all seemed.
Right.
And so then obviously, as we got towards the end of shooting episode 1 and 3 is what we shot at the beginning of 2020, just before the pandemic took hold fully. It was very strange sort of seeing the news rolling in and sort of contextualizing it in terms of what we just filmed, because episode 1 and 3, I'd say, oddly enough, are probably the ones that veer closest to the sort of, the sort of epicenter of the pandemic, as it were, the sort of the day that it all sort of takes hold, and the kind of things that people actually ended up going through. So it was very odd that we'd kind of got those episodes out of the way, and then we're sort of, waiting to carry on. And it was, yeah, it was strange. But I think what we had to hold on to was that were not going to change anything about the story we were telling. It was always going to be the story we told, because we didn't want to, exploit the actual pandemic. That would be highly unethical, I think. But I think also, it allowed us to sort of be a bit more sensitive in a way. I suppose we had to probably consider the impact, the extra impact that our story would have now, the sort of resonance it would take on that we didn't mean it to. So yeah, certainly it's hard to sort of run away from the similarities, but ultimately it's a hopeful story. It's a story that celebrates rebuilding and the best things about society.
I agree. I think what's interesting too, when you bring up, especially with episode 1 and 3, and just talking about like the things that you kind of the immediate response to the moment, just like what are we doing, what do we have to do right now, and just thinking about the kind of person that your character Jeevan was. It's very, very interesting because in the height of the pandemic, the first thing I would do is I think I would think a lot like he does, in the sense where like we've got to make sure that we have like food. We need to make sure that we are well, we have, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. We don't know what's going on. But the first thing that happens during the pandemic, which is just so odd to me, and I ruminate and think about this all the time, is why the heck did we run out of toilet paper first? Why is that the first thing anyone thinks about?
It's funny, isn't it?
Why was that? Yeah. So I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at him grocery shop, and I'm just like, this was never that ever.
Yeah, I feel like you get into sort of primal territory, don't you, when it comes to this sort of stuff?
And it's like 2-ply.
Yeah, it's got to be the good stuff. It's got to be the good stuff.
Oh my God, that's so funny. But even just digging a little bit deeper into who he is, and I think that's why it's so important that he's a central character in this story, is that he was just, I mean, as many of us are, just living his life, minding his business on a day-to-day, and something just very, very specific, and that's just very, very central to the story happens, and he just leaps into protector mode. And that really is what the kind of response I think all of us would like. And this is not a person who ever saw himself in that role. So just maybe if we could talk more about the kind of person that Jeevan is.
Yeah, I'd say that Jeevan is a sort of a very impulsive person. That was kind of my center point for him, because I had to sort of make sense of the sort of seemingly random and crazy thing that he does at the top of the whole thing, which is, sees an actor having a heart attack on stage and decides to run through the audience and jump up on stage and try and save his life, even though he has absolutely no idea how to do that.
Right.
It was kind of the kind of thing that made it's how the book starts as well. But I hadn't read the book when I read the pilot, and so I read the pilot and it starts that way, and I was just like, this is really interesting. Who is this guy? And I'm already intrigued by the character. And what I landed on as I carried on reading and spoke with Patrick and Somerville, our showrunner, and Hiro Mariah, who directed episode 1. Sort of got into their plan, their sort of the idea of where the story was going to go. And I realized that basically its impulse is sort of his main driving force, because he kind of can't rely on much else, really. Also, he feels. So he and largely his impulsive nature has sort of meant he's on unstable ground. He can't decide what to do with himself. He can't commit to one thing. He can barely hold anything together relationship wise, in terms of his romantic relationship, his family relationships, all this stuff. But then this thing is coming down the line, and his sister Sia calls him to tell him about it, and then we see that scene with her in the hospital where she says, she's got one brother who's won a Pulitzer and another one who eats cereal for dinner, and I called the latter. Why did I do that? It's because she knows he's impulsive.
Yeah.
And this is the one time that impulse is going to save his life, basically.
That's true.
And and so that's kind of where it turns out to be a positive thing. His impulse to tell that sort of lie to Kirsten, that they both know is a lie, so that it means that she's safe.
Yeah.
And then his impulse to leave the apartment his impulse to get them somewhere safe,
Mm-hmm.
but then it comes to that crux where he has an impulse to do one thing, she doesn't have that impulse, and that's where he reaches a crossroads and maybe has to start changing tact.
Definitely. I'll say this. Station 11 really makes you think about not only like sort of, I guess, prepper existentialism, but it's interesting to really think outside of yourself and like, how am I managing in the world? How are my actions affecting others? Am I useful? Am I grateful? And is this person speaking to me a crackpot? So it's like, I thought, there are very specific moments where I think, you can tell what I'm drawing from, where you're just like, wow, this feels very familiar. So it starts to feel, it starts to kind of dig into a lot of like, maybe like your own like spirituality or whatever your constitution, your personal constitution is. But it's a thinking show. It's a show for people that really want to just think beyond the script or beyond the here and now, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's where Patrick is a real, really meticulous and thoughtful and detailed storyteller. And there was stuff obviously that he was bringing into it that I didn't realize was there until I saw the finished product, until I went on that journey and had all the sort of pieces of the jigsaw fit together. And I've said it before about Patrick, that he's got a way of perceiving the story in a way that I can't really compute. He can see it all, and the way it all links together, and the way that it will sort of crescendo.
Yes.
He's like a composer. He's that level of sort of genius, I think. And it was kind of amazing to sort of just sit back and marvel at how someone knows that it will work. They in a way, it's about trusting the audience, and not thinking that the audience are stupid, but thinking that your audience are intelligent, as audiences always are. And that that you're placing this here, you're placing this here, I'm putting it all in place, and they'll be logging it all, and it'll all be there, and I'm gonna piece it all together, and they'll know why we had to get through all that stuff to get to where we got, and I think it's very rare that someone can do it brilliantly. I think a lot of people strive for it, but very few people manage it. So
no, it's very true. It's very hard to pull off, I guess we would call maybe like a container episode, where sometimes some episodes have to stand alone in a way to bring you to a place. And the way that he's able to like pull everything together, as you put it, like the jigsaw example was a very good one, where you may need to go forward, and then maybe you need to go backwards a little bit to sort of understand what the plot was here. But then you start to find out things. But as you're watching it in front of you, there's never confusion. If you're really in it and immersed in this universe, you totally understand exactly what's going on in front of you. And he did an excellent job of bringing that together. So I really enjoyed watching this show just on my own. I really have enjoyed watching it.
Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's also a case of, TV, I think, and storytelling in general. I think it's sort of trusting that the audience, they're okay with having a question hanging.
Yes.
Because they trust that it will get answered eventually, that not everyone needs an answer in the here and now. I think that's kind of very, very clever and trusting storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, that works. Like, I mean, there are some shows where that absolutely does work. As we know, they're episodic in a way where it's like, it's just that episode, that one off, that thing. Maybe there's a part two, that's it. But what I like about shows of this caliber is that every single episode is something that you can sit down with someone and really talk about. Like, these are the kinds of shows where I'll watch the podcast or the recap so I can just get a better understanding. Maybe there was something that I missed, but it's like, it's more a part of the experience of it all. Like a show like this, again, it's an experience. That's probably the best way I could articulate it.
Yeah. And I think it's the advantage of the sort of limited series format as well. Yes. And that it's a closed loop.
Yes.
And so everything it's a tapestry that's got a beginning and an end, and everything is, there aren't really any threads left hanging.
Yeah, which is a good thing. That's always nice.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you're working on that you'd like to talk about or that you can talk about?
I'm currently shooting a film in North Carolina called Providence, which yeah we're in the process of making. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to be a part of it, and what a great cast,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's great to be doing something new.
How are they treating you there? North Carolina's a great place. That Southern
I'm
charm.
enjoying it. The weather's great. The
Right?
people are
It's nice.
lovely. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
There's good food
yeah.
too. Mm-hmm.
Very good food. Yeah, enjoying that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I always enjoy somewhere like North Carolina because you go there and someone just says hello and it's not just a formality. They're saying, how are you doing? They really want to know how
They
you're
really
doing.
care. Yeah, they genuinely want to
Yeah.
know. Yeah, it's
And
really
it's like we're
nice.
so hardened by some of these cities. They're just like,
I
it's when they
know.
ask me how I'm doing, I'm like, what's going on? Do you try to take my watch? So it's never that in the
Yeah,
South.
it's a very also as a Brit, it's very much a sort of what is this? I don't understand.
Right, right. That's
Yeah,
hilarious. That's so
yeah.
hilarious. Well, it's really cool because you're as you are doing more and more work on stateside, and we're becoming more familiar with you. It seems like you've had this long career on the other side of the pond. And
Mm.
so, did you have any difficulty sort of reintroducing yourself to our world here, or was it just smooth sailing, doing my thing?
Um, I think the only because the way that I sort of crossed over was in probably one of the luckiest ways I could have, which was obviously Yesterday is a big movie,
Right.
and so it was sort of out of the gates, and I didn't. A lot of my friends who come over to the US, they had to grind for a while to get an agent, to get a manager, to get all that stuff.
Mhm.
And I have to say, I was very lucky. It was sort of ready, waiting for me. But what I appreciate actually is that it's acknowledged that I did work a lot before that. I've been
Ah,
working from a
yes.
young age, and that I was working my way up over on sort of my side of the pond. So I think it was that. I think one of the trailers for Yesterday said something like introducing Himesh Patel, and a lot of my friends are like, "What do I mean introducing? Like, you've been doing this for 9 years."
Right.
But it's just the way it's
It's
the
just the
way it
way it is.
works. Yeah, yeah. So
And is there any particular, I mean, is there really any incredible difference between working here or working back home, or is it kind of more of the same?
um nothing hugely different. I
Mhm.
mean, apart from craft services,
Oh my
that's
gosh, that's
it's a
hilarious.
huge difference. It's a huge difference.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
guess ours is probably a little better.
a little better. Yeah, yeah. That's pretty good.
I was not expecting that answer. That's hilarious. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really do
Thank you.
appreciate you. Thank you for taking that time out. I know you got a ton of stuff to do, and especially since you're filming a movie right now.
No, yeah,
Yeah, I know it's quite early for you. So I do appreciate you. Again, my name is Koku with blackfilm.com. And I'm speaking with Himesh Patel, star of the HBO Max miniseries Station 11. Actually, star of a lot of different things. And you were on EastEnders for a very, very long time, hundreds of episodes. So
yeah,
those that
yeah.
know, he's not a new kid on the block for sure. He may be new to you if you're only familiar with television stateside, but it's actually kind of amazing to see when you dig into someone that you like and then realize that there's whole body of work that you may not have known about. It's a lot of fun to get into that too. So you've given people a lot of homework, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. They might
So
not have time for all of it.
no, they might. We've got a lot of time. People are still working from home. You'll be surprised what they're
It's
doing,
true.
so called in their meetings.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, and you take care. Okay.
Thank you. Nice to meet
Thank
you.
you. Nice to meet you too. Bye bye.
Bye.
If you want to see more content like this on blackfilm.com, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell.